Hi everyone. We've often heard about nature spirits through fairy tales and legends that we loved to listen to when we were younger or not so young. And then we grew up and we have been told that these beings were nothing real, that they were just pure imagination. However, children can perceive these beings and interact with them. They are often these imaginary friends that our children play with. And that's because they don't vibrate on the same dimensional plane as we do. They don't have any physical bodies, for example. And so when we grow up and we are socialized, we lose the ability to see them because we are told that they don't exist, they are nothing real. Across the globe, in all cultures, we hear about nature spirits. And in ancient times, the material world was not as dense as it is now. And so the interaction with these dimensions was easier. The crossing over to those dimensions was easier. For example, when we think about our ancient Celtic culture, interaction with elementals in that time was far more common than it is now. And we've often heard about these stories where hikers would enter fairy circles and would completely disappear. And sometimes they would come back. But since in those dimensions time is not the same as in the material world, they'd come back only to see that 100 years had passed. And then Christianity arrived, and the church and the powers in place condemned these beings and the people who had interactions with them, accusing them often of witchcraft or even Satanism. And when we look at the Greek god figure Pan, that is often associated with satyrs and fauns. So the image of this god was used to illustrate the devil in order to convert pagans to Christianity. Only in certain parts of the Western world have we kept these traditions. The best example is Iceland, of course, because in Iceland, when they have building plans for roads or houses, they will always call on a psychic to communicate with elementals first to see if it doesn't disturb them. And if it does, they don't hesitate to alter their plans. And there are also a lot of stories of children from Iceland who cross over to their dimensions, who enter their homes and sometimes come back with certain objects. Nature spirits work for the well-being of plants, animals and trees, and also the elements they are associated with. They live in a much lighter world than ours, so it's a world made of light and love, and often they cannot understand these destructive human behaviors towards nature, and they're very sad about it. I really have a special bond with them since childhood and even beyond. And about 2 years ago, I was looking for a house to settle in, and the universe really guided me to a special place near a forest, and it's called the Fairy Realm. It's the forest I'm sitting in right now. And as I walked through this forest, first of all I was really amazed of the beauty surrounding me because it really looked like a fantasy movie set. And I had this deep feeling, it was a feeling of coming home after a long absence, but I didn't know why. So the same evening I put myself into self-hypnosis, which is the equivalent of a deep meditation state. And I was literally dragged out of my body into that dimension where I really felt completely welcome, so I was in my astral body. And they said, "Welcome home," and they cheered and they started a party because they love to party, they love to play music, to dance, they were really joyful. And there was one being particularly that really guided me through their world. It was a little elf. And he explained me a lot of things about their world and specifically secrets about this forest. He also told me that I was coming here actually to reactivate a partnership with them. When we travel around the world, we can meet different nature spirits depending on where we are. So for example, on my travels I had the experience of meeting the jinns of the Moroccan mountains or nature spirits of the Amazon jungle in Peru. And it's always a very different energy and sometimes really totally different features. In Ireland we can also, of course, see the leprechauns, in Thailand the Nang Mai, etc., etc. The different elementals were first classified by the Swiss doctor, mystic and astrologer Paracelsus in the 16th century. So, we have earth elementals, gnomes, pixies, sprites, and trolls. They live underground or in rocks, and they work in mines with minerals, and they also take care of earth and the soil. Gnomes also assist wounded wild animals. Then we have the air elementals, so fairies, of course. There are two kinds of fairies. The solitary fairies we can find around flowers, and the fairy troops, usually taking care of trees. There are also masculine fairies, and they have insect-like wings similar to dragonfly or butterfly wings. Elves, usually small and thin, quite similar to fairies but with no wings. And according to the Elfic school of Reykjavik in Iceland, there are 13 different elf races. Sylphs, similar to fairies but with much larger wings. They are almost like angel-like beings, and they can fly high into the sky, and they take care of the wind and the purity of the air. Then we have water elementals, so of course mermaids and mermen. They live in the sea, and numerous legends say the songs of the mermaids would seduce sailors and cause them to crash their ships and sometimes drown. They are often mistaken with the Selkies legend. So Selkies are these beings that have the appearance of a seal, but can transform into human beings when coming on the shore. And then they would seduce, of course, men and women, and sometimes marry them. Then we have undines and nymphs. So we can find them in soft water, lakes, rivers, and streams. Naiads, more solitary, they guard fountains, wells, and waterfalls. And finally, wyverns, often described as water serpents or dragons. They protect certain energy spots, they have healing abilities, they are often associated with alchemy. Then fire elementals, salamanders. They live inside logs and are said to feed on the fire. Other elementals include unicorns. They symbolize femininity, wisdom, purity, and creativity. Oftentimes we can see them around creative children or creative adults with a strong inner child. We can find images of unicorns dating back from ancient Babylonian and Sumerian times. And some say they once walked upon the earth physically and that they were hunted for their magical horns. They then disappeared completely from the material world. Nowadays they are still pretty rare to encounter. A lot of them are in high-frequency, sacred locations. And of course, the mythical creatures known as dragons. They are also said to have been incarnated physically back in time where there was less density on Earth, and they were also hunted. They were actually also demonized by the church. This is why we have this really scary image of dragons. But they are benevolent beings and often guardians of interdimensional portals and of the sacred fire of Earth. There are a lot of stories of love affairs between humans and elementals. So for example, men falling in love with fairies, nymphs, or mermaids, and vice versa. And in certain shamanic traditions, there are also children that are conceived in the spirit world. So the shaman will have his physical children, but also his spirit children. Elementals have strong personalities, they have likes and dislikes, and they are quite suspicious of humans. Before we enter their territory, they will scan us energetically to see if we have pure intentions or not. And of course, since their number one preoccupation is to preserve the environment and take care of animals and plants, they can get angry towards those who do not respect them. They can also be mischievous. They love to play tricks on us. So, for example, if you've lost your keys, it might be a gnome or a troll trying to drive you nuts, just hiding your keys, just to make a joke because they love to laugh, they're very joyful. They also love it when we bring them offerings and treats. So, fresh fruits, make sure they're organic and not rotten, nuts, honey, raw chocolate. And don't be surprised if you still find the food after where you left them, because they only feed off the energy of the food and not physically. If you want to have a more direct contact with them, you can also settle a piece of your garden and dedicate it to them, really a place where they are not disturbed. And you can just ask them if they could take care of your garden, and in exchange just give them some offerings, and you'll see that your garden will really grow and flourish abundantly. You can also go into nature with your camera and take pictures of them. So it's better to do that when the light is soft, so usually at dawn or dusk. And you will see sometimes on your picture light appears, or orbs. Nature spirits are in fact only waiting for you to connect with them, because they really want us to help them to preserve our dear Mother Earth. And I have the feeling that since the Earth is ascending in higher dimensions, this interaction between humans and elementals will increase in the years to come. And actually, numerous portals around the globe are being reactivated right now. So welcome to the wonderful world of elementals, accessible to those who have a pure heart and who have a strong inner child spirit. Sat Nam.